Socialism is the fantastic younger brother of almost decrepit despotism, which it wants to succeed. Its efforts are, therefore, in the deepest sense, reactionary. For it desires such an amount of state power as only despotism has possessed. Indeed, it outdoes all the past, in that it aims at the complete annihilation of the individual, whom it deems as an unauthorized luxury of nature, which is to be improved by it into an appropriate organ of the general community. That was Friedrich Nietzsche in his assessment of socialism. And indeed, I would say that, along with all that and more, socialism is irrational. I mean, if you think about it, if somebody tries to annihilate individuality, subordinate it to a community, that doesn't make any sense. Imagine if somebody was to try to, if you had a big brick wall, and they tried to annihilate the bricks. Well, there's no wall, right? In order to have a community, reason tells us we got to uphold the individual. The more integral, the more healthy, wholesome, well the individuals are, the more wholesome, healthy, well the aggregate, which is what we create, right? We create, human beings create community, not the other way around. It's not as though the individual actually is a luxury of nature. Individual is nature, right? And unauthorized, unauthorized. Well, if anybody who has any sort of religious sense or spiritual sense will say that we're here, we must be authorized to be here by something even grander than us. But yeah, it's ridiculous, petty, but dangerous at the same time, because people get warped up in this sort of thing. But I actually posted that on Facebook today. I ran across it and I go, that's pretty profound. And had a little bit of a conversation going back and forth, which I wasn't a party of to, just a few other people, and I read a few of them. And it's interesting to see the reaction that comes out of stuff like that. But I think it's good to discuss, because I think the reason that it's important to discuss is for us to get a sense of how we sit in an order, right? If we realize that the individual is superior to community, because community only exists because of individuals, not the other way around, then we know logically that socialism, if it tries to aggregate everybody and annihilate the individual, you cannot annihilate the individual and still have the aggregate. It's impossible. So that's probably why socialism has always been a complete failure in terms of a societal construct. It's been tried over and over again. Seems to work in the early stages when people are still operating on their individual mode, more or less, and then it just turns into a form of despotism. And but a more sinister one, I would say, because I mean the openly unapologetic despot just goes about lopping off people's heads or whatever if he wants to. Anybody who doesn't agree with his dictates. But socialism gets into the minds and the hearts of the individuals, and they believe that somehow what they create is superior to what they are. Their birdhouses that they build are somehow now greater than they are. Because after all, if we think about it, society is just something we create in our minds, and we say it's something. But you cannot talk to a society. You can only talk to an individual. A society cannot do anything. Only the individuals do things. All of that is just a phony thing that we talk about. It's a construct, right? And yet, socialism pretends that that is real and more significant than what creates it. It's like saying, if there was a concept of God, right? It'd be like saying now, we're going to run God now, right? If there was, let's say there was the master God that we could actually talk to, whatever. God, now we run you, right? That's what the idea of socialism is. It's bogus because it's saying that what we create is now senior to us. Makes no sense to me. I may stand corrected, but show me where I'm wrong on this one. I just think it's interesting to point these things out and to get the conversation going, even if it's just with one individual. That's fine. Anyway, Steve here again. Great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.